Hey there, bold one. If you are a trained actor who has been trying to make a headway in your career for at least a few years and still feel like you're coming up against a wall or you are stuck on a plateau, then this podcast is for you. You're probably feeling frustrated because you feel like you're doing everything right? You're doing all the things that we were trained to do when we went to acting school. They tell us, keep up on your training, make sure you go to workshops, make sure you're always working out, work that muscle, stretch that muscle, work your instrument, all of that jazz. You're doing all of that. And yet it's not having the effect that you want. And that's because who's seeing it? The other actors in your class and your acting coach. But they, for the most part, are probably not casting anything. So unless you're doing the other work, the work that is going to get you auditions, you are going to be relying on luck. And I believe that we should not rely on luck in our careers. We don't have to feel like a leaf fluttering around in the wind. We can actually get behind the wheel of our career, step on the gas ourselves, and steer it where we want to go. Yes, I get it. There are some factors that are beyond our control. We don't have control over whether or not someone will cast us. But if you are working on your craft and working on the business of being an actor, then eventually you're going to get cast because you're good and the people who do the casting know about you, right? I can have the best bread in the world, but if I don't open up a bakery and sell my bread, nobody cares. Nobody's going to buy it, right? And it's the same thing with you as an actor. So maybe because we just had January, maybe you started the year off with a big bang, right? You're like, okay, 2024 is going to be my year. I'm going to get going. You had a lot of momentum. You sent out a ton of emails to casting directors, maybe looking for an agent, whatever it is. And then crickets. Yeah. Or maybe one or two chirps. I hope something, right? But whatever it is, depressing. That isn't the effect, that isn't the outcome that you were hoping for when you sent out this mass mailing. So the problem with this is that it creates a limiting belief in your head. So you do all this work, you send out all these emails, and you don't get the result that you want. So then you start wondering, well, it must be me. I'm doing what I should be doing. Why aren't I getting the outcome I should be getting? And from that, you start to make your own limiting beliefs based on whatever it is that you think is holding you back. Is it maybe I'm too old? Is I'm too tall? I'm too heavy? I'm too thin? I'm too dark? I'm too light? Whatever that limiting belief is, it is reinforced by the lack of response to your very big push towards the industry, your very big invitation from the industry to interact with you. Okay, so let's look at this. What is the reason that nobody responded? Well, it's very simple. It's because you sent out a mass mailing and nobody really likes mass mailings, right? And I know it takes a lot more time to write people individually, but you'll also find that you get more response from it. I'm not saying that everybody's going to respond. There's always going to be too many, people that are too busy to respond. But if you speak to someone personally and I'm not saying take that mass mailing that you have and then send each email out individually. That is not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is that you know who you're talking to and know what you want to say and know what you want from them, right? First of all, the first big question is, why should they read your mail? So your very first line in that mail should be something that is inviting them to read further. And I always say lean in, right? Lean into that thing that makes you special. So if you haven't introduced yourself to this person, well, introduce yourself, right? Very succinctly, but introduce yourself with your castability. let them know how they can use you. If you're responding to an audition notice, let them know you're responding to an audition notice. If you are just reaching out because you love the series that they are a part of or the film that they were a part of, let them know. Everybody loves a true compliment, not a compliment that's, smoke and mirrors, right? So let them know. Write an actual personal email, because when you do that, you'll be building authentic relationships as opposed to transactional relationships. And nobody wants to feel used. Nobody. I mean, we all know that this is an industry. If you're reaching out to a complete stranger, it's clear that you want something. You don't necessarily need to say it. Gee, I would love to be cast in your series. It would be so great if you would consider me in the future. Blah, blah, blah. You are an actor. You don't need to tell them that. They know that you want to be working. It's not a surprise to anybody. So you don't need to say that. So think of other things to say that can add value to them. And I think we can get away with a lot in this life, as long as we're not boring people, right? I'm not saying don't send anybody the story of your life. But if you use humor, show your personality, show them who you are, say it succinctly, and then say goodbye, well, the worst that can happen is that you don't hear anything back. But you already had that happen when you did your mass mailing. So the other thing that could be happening, right, is if you didn't hear back from a mailing or a big push that you did, say you did write some personal emails, for instance, and you're still not hearing back. Okay, then it's time to look at your branding, because there is a misconnect between you and your materials. The industry is confused, and a confused mind doesn't cast. They move on, because there are too many people in our industry. There are too many actors who do know what their brand is, who do know what it is that they're offering, what they're bringing to the table. Does that make sense? This is a visual industry, and it's our job as actors to make casting directors, showrunners, screenwriters, all the agents, all those people, right? It is our job to make them feel confident in their choice to work with us. And there's only one way to do that. The language of our industry, as I just said, is visual. So we must find a way to show the industry where you want to go and not where you've been. So if you have had a year of yes, this is what I call this year when you're just saying yes to everything, right? And this happens, and sometimes that year turns into a decade of yes. It's yes to independent films, yes to low budget, yes to no budget, yes to student films, yes, 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 yes. Quantity over quality. The problem is of course, there are some independent films that have a wonderful aesthetic and have great production value. Don't get me wrong. I don't have anything against any of those. Student films, low budget, no budget, nothing. And I still will do them occasionally. But now they're sprinkled in strategically. Like if I know it's not going to get in the way of something else. Because when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. So when you're saying yes to that low budget commercial for a bank, you are saying no to a nationwide commercial for a bank. So you have to be aware of that and ask yourself, what's the payoff? Is it worth it? Am I going to get these materials? This is another question, right? When I first returned back to acting after my 16-year hiatus, and I was saying yes to everything, there's some projects I'm still waiting for the material on. I mean, and frankly, they can keep it. It doesn't do me any good anymore. But, that's just to say there are some projects that I never received my material on. And then there are other projects that by the time I received it, 2, 3, 4 years later, it wasn't relevant to me anymore. I wasn't in that same place anymore. And where I wanted to go, where I was ready to go, was no longer reflective of that material. So what you want to make sure is that year of yes, right? That yes year doesn't turn into your whole career. So that's what you have to be super careful about. So what can you do about it? You can find a way to show the industry that where you want to go and what you are capable of. And there are many ways to do it. We are all walking around with amazing studios in our pocket. If you're at all in any kind of film industry area or even just any kind of communities, there will be people who are working on other skills and who have gotten probably pretty darn good at those other skills, like DOPs and sound people and directors and other actors. Look, frankly, the Corona year has also made us be really good working with technical stuff, right? We've all gotten fairly good at dealing with the sound and the lighting and all of that. Consider shooting something yourself and consider just doing a self-tape because frankly, self-tapes are the language of this industry that everybody understands. A really well-shot self-tape with a scene that really fits your castability is impressive to everyone. So it is a language that agents, casting directors, showrunners, producers, it is the language that they understand because they see it on a regular basis from actors who are at a much higher level than you are because they're still auditioning. And yes, they do it from home. It's not like, most of them are not renting a studio or have a studio on their property, right? They still have their little setup in their home just like we all do. So just make sure that your setup is on point. Make sure that your lighting is good. Make sure your sound is good. Make sure your framing is good. All of that. And then kill it. And then send that out if you have nothing else. But when you do that, when you send out a self-tape in place of a show reel, because your show reel sucks, it's imperative that everything else be on point. Your branding needs to be spot on. Your headshots need to be spot on. Your website, the casting portals, all of that needs to be flawless. And then when you send something like that, people get it. They're like, okay, they can take a little breath and relax. They say, okay, this is a professional, somebody I can work with. All right. I hope that helped you. You stay your bold and beautiful self. Until next time, bye-bye.